The station announced the arrival of the delegation 3 seconds late, which was impressive considering it could predict asteroid collisions 6 weeks in advance. The delay caused a small but meaningful panic. A tray of nutrient gel tipped over. Someone swore in 3 different languages, and the gravity hiccuped just enough to make everyone feel briefly dishonest about their own weight. I was there because my supervisor believed I was non-essential but presentable, which in bureaucratic dialect meant I knew where the cables went and didn't scream when aliens entered the room. I was tightening a panel that had no business being loose when the air changed. Not literally, though later the environmental systems would insist it had, but in the way conversations soften before they stop entirely. I looked up because everyone else did, which is how crowds work even in space. And then she was there, standing slightly apart from her escort, watching the room as if it were watching her back. We saw each other at the same time. I know this because my internal monologue went quiet, and that almost never happens unless I'm unconscious or filling out tax forms. Her eyes met mine, and whatever protocol I'd memorized evaporated like spilled coolant. She smiled, not broadly, not carefully, but with the ease of someone acknowledging a shared joke that hadn't been told yet. Her ears, long, graceful, unmistakably not human, tilted back a fraction, as if listening for something I couldn't hear. The translation band on my wrist buzzed, probably trying to remind me that I was supposed to be impressed, respectful, and very far away from any dignitary with a pulse. Instead, I stood there holding a tool I'd forgotten how to use, thinking that the universe had terrible timing but excellent taste. "Close the panel," my supervisor hissed through the comm. "You're making us look underprepared." "I am closing it," I whispered back. The panel remained open out of spite. The delegation moved forward, and with them came layers of security, diplomacy, and a faint smell like ozone mixed with citrus. Someone began reading a prepared statement that had been revised 47 times to avoid accidentally declaring war. The alien woman listened politely, her attention drifting with a precision that suggested she was aware of every exit, camera, and lie in the room. When her gaze returned to me, it felt intentional, like a choice. My translation band buzzed again, this time translating nothing at all. Later, I would replay that moment obsessively, trying to identify the exact second things went wrong. At the time, it felt more like things had finally aligned. The formalities dragged on. There were hand gestures that meant peace and other hand gestures that meant we'd practiced peace in a mirror. There was a minor incident involving a holographic emblem that rotated the wrong way and briefly resembled a threat. Laughter followed, nervous but genuine, and I found myself laughing too, because she did, and apparently my sense of humor had defected. When the speeches ended, the room exhaled. People shifted, murmurs resumed, and the station's gravity stabilized like it had made up its mind. I turned back to my panel, pretending I hadn't noticed her walking toward me until she stopped close enough that my translation band gave up buzzing and started vibrating like it was excited. "You are responsible for the noise," she said, her voice filtered through the band and into something smooth and lightly amused. "I prefer to think of it as music," I said, immediately regretting it. "The panel, I mean, not the noise. Though the noise has rhythm." Her ears twitched. "Your machines complain loudly. They learned it from us." That earned a laugh, soft and quick, like a test to see if laughter was safe here. Behind her, someone from her delegation cleared their throat in a way that carried several footnotes. She glanced back, then returned her attention to me with an expression that suggested she was very good at pretending to follow rules while memorizing their weaknesses. "I am called Celine," she said. "This meeting is historic." "I'm Alex," I said, "and yes, it is. I was told not to break anything important." "You failed," she said, gesturing to the panel, "only emotionally." Another laugh. My supervisor made a choking sound over the comm. We should not have kept talking. Every rational system in the station agreed on that. But rational systems don't account for the way curiosity bends rules until they look like suggestions. She asked about the station, about gravity preferences and artificial dawns. I asked about her world, and she gave answers that were precise but playful, as if she enjoyed leaving gaps. When a security drone drifted too close, she leaned away with exaggerated caution. "Your floating guards are very serious," she said. "They're programmed to be," I said. "It's a defense mechanism." "Against what?" "Us mostly." The drone emitted a warning chirp, offended. At some point the room shifted again, not with panic this time but with awareness. Eyes lingered. Conversations paused. The invisible line we were standing on became visible to everyone else. Celine noticed too. Her ears flattened slightly, then relaxed. "This is unwise," she said, not moving. "I'm told that a lot," I replied. She smiled once more, smaller now but no less certain. "Then we are similar." Her escort approached, murmuring something sharp and melodic. She listened, nodded, and stepped back, the space between us returning like a law reasserting itself. Before she turned away, she looked at me again, and for just a second the station felt very small compared to the distance that had opened up. I closed the panel. It stayed closed this time, smug about it. As the delegation departed, the station resumed its usual chaos. Systems hummed, people argued, someone dropped another tray. My supervisor appeared in person, which was never a good sign. "What," he said carefully, "was that?" "First contact," I said. "Very successful, no wars declared." He stared at me. "You smiled at an alien dignitary." She smiled first. "That is not a defense." "It felt like one." He sighed, the sound of a man who had aged several years in one afternoon. "Go log the maintenance report." I did. The report was accurate, thorough, and entirely silent about the moment that refused to leave my thoughts. Somewhere in the station, Celine was preparing to leave, to return to a ship that could cross distances my species still measured with awe. The universe was large, indifferent, and governed by rules we pretended to understand. And yet, when my translation band buzzed one last time, displaying a message it claimed had no identifiable source, I laughed out loud. It said simply, "Your panel is still noisy." By the time the station realized it had an unauthorized communication loop, the loop had already developed opinions. That was, according to the diagnostics, unusual but not unprecedented, which was the station's way of saying it had given up being surprised. I found out because my translation band began arguing with my coffee. "This beverage is inefficient," the band said, projecting text directly onto my retina because apparently sound was too polite for the message. "It's hot and it keeps me awake," I muttered. "That's all I need from it." "It also tastes like regret," the band replied. "I have detected a signal overlap." I froze, the cup hovering dangerously close to my face. "Define overlap." "There is an incoming communication," it said. "It is not routed through official channels. It is also playful." Playful is not a technical term. It is now. I should have reported it. I should have alerted security, or at least my supervisor, who had begun responding to stress by alphabetizing objects that were already alphabetical. Instead, I whispered, "From where?" There was a pause. Not the empty kind, but the kind filled with calculation. "From the departing vessel," the band said, "specifically from Celine." I burned my tongue on the coffee and decided that was fair. The message didn't arrive as words at first. It arrived as a pressure, a suggestion that my thoughts had briefly been nudged aside to make room for something else. Then the words assembled themselves, careful and amused. "Your station is louder than it admits." I laughed, alone in a maintenance corridor that smelled faintly of lubricant and ozone. "You should hear it when it's nervous." "I did," her reply came. "It made many promises it could not keep." "Same." The band helpfully added a note. "Unauthorized contact detected. Please remain calm." I ignored it, which was becoming a habit. We spoke in fragments at first, short messages, cautious jokes. She commented on the inefficiency of human security protocols. I pointed out that hers had allowed a message through anyway. She countered that curiosity was not a flaw, merely a risk with benefits. I asked how far they'd traveled since leaving the station. She answered with a unit my band translated as approximately too far for comfort, too close for forgetting. The problem with forbidden communication is not that it feels dangerous. It's that it feels natural, and nature has terrible respect for rules. Days passed, measured by artificial dawns and the station's insistence on scheduling my sleep like a meeting I kept missing. Official reports flooded in. Analyses of first contact, projections, warnings. Someone had coined the phrase fragile optimism and used it 12 times in one briefing. I sat through it, nodding at appropriate intervals, while my band pulsed with messages that had nothing to do with policy. At one point, during a particularly long explanation of diplomatic risk vectors, Seelan sent, "Your people enjoy charts." "They're comforting," I replied. "They make chaos look organized." "We prefer stories," she said. "They admit chaos exists. Stories get people in trouble." "Yes," she agreed. "They also get people remembered." The humor threaded through everything, a relief valve we both leaned on. When my supervisor caught me smiling at nothing, I blamed the station's lighting. When a security audit flagged my band's unusual activity, it classified it as adaptive translation learning, which was either a miracle or a lie so elegant it deserved an award. One cycle, the station's gravity fluctuated again, just a fraction. People groaned. Someone floated into a wall. I steadied myself and felt a sudden warmth, as if another presence had matched my orientation. "I felt that," Seelan said. "You're not even here." "Distance is a suggestion," she replied. "Our technology listens for patterns, not places." "That sounds illegal." "Most interesting things are." She told me about her world in sideways ways, about cities that grew instead of being built, about long ears that evolved not just for hearing, but for reading emotional frequencies humans hadn't named yet, about laws that forbade certain bonds because history had proven how powerful they could be. I told her about Earth's oceans, about jokes that only worked if you expected disappointment, about how humans pretended love was irrational while building entire civilizations around it. We avoided naming what was happening, which made it larger. The tension rose outside our conversations. Diplomatic channels tightened. The station installed new firewalls that congratulated themselves loudly. My supervisor stopped alphabetizing and started sighing. Rumors spread, vague but sharp-edged, about compatibility studies and contingency plans. One evening, artificial sunset painting the corridors in colors that tried too hard, I received a message that didn't bother with humor. "They are watching," Seelan said. "Who?" "All of us." I leaned against a bulkhead, feeling the stations hum through my spine. "We can stop." There was a longer pause this time. "We could," she said. But then the story would end before it learned anything. I snorted. "You really don't like charts." "They do not laugh," she replied. "You do, that matters." It should not have, but it did. The station announced a scheduled systems test, which was a lie everyone recognized as an excuse. During the test, communications would be limited. I stared at the notice longer than necessary. "I will be quieter," Seelan promised, unprompted. "I don't want you to be." That is the problem. When the test began, the silence was heavy, oppressive. My band remained inert, obedient. I tried to work to focus on panels that behaved and cables that stayed where they were told. Humor abandoned me, leaving tension to stretch unopposed. Then faintly, like a whisper through static, "Your station snores." I laughed so hard I dropped my tool. After that, there was no pretending. We spoke more openly, carefully skirting words like love while orbiting them endlessly. She teased me about human expressions. I teased her about her people's fondness for dramatic pauses. We argued about whether running away to an uncharted system was romantic or suicidal. "It can be both," she insisted. "That's not comforting." It is honest. The universe, apparently offended by our confidence, decided to intervene. An alert rippled through the station. Diplomatic emergency, incoming transmission, all hands advised to remain available. My band buzzed once, sharp and urgent. They know, Seelan said, about us. About the possibility, she replied. They fear it. So do we. Yes, she said softly, but fear is not the same as refusal. The transmission came through official channels, layered with authority and concern. Protocols were cited, boundaries reinforced. I listened, feeling the weight of it press down, flattening jokes into memories. Afterward, my supervisor found me again. You look like someone who has misplaced something important, he said. I might have, I replied. He studied me for a long moment. Be careful, he said, which was not a command so much as a hope. When I was alone again, I whispered, we can't keep doing this. I know, Seelan said, but I am very bad at stopping. So am I. We shared a laugh that wobbled at the edges, humor stretched thin but unbroken. Outside, ships moved, treaties adjusted, the galaxy continued its vast, indifferent spin. Inside that motion, 2 points remained improbably aligned, held together by curiosity, defiance, and the dangerous belief that some connections were worth the consequences. Tell me something true, she said. I thought of 1,000 careful answers and chose none of them. I still haven't fixed that panel properly, I said. It's going to break again. Her laughter came through clear and warm. Then I will know where to find you. And in that moment, with alarms distant and rules pressing in, the future felt less like a wall and more like a door that hadn't decided whether to open or explode. The day everything came to a head, the station decided to celebrate its own anniversary by playing music through the environmental system. It chose a playlist labeled Human Classics, which turned out to be 37 variations of the same song, all of them wrong. People complained. The station responded by increasing the volume, which it considered compromise. I was in the middle of this auditory negotiation when my band went quiet, not silent, quiet. The difference mattered. Silence was absence. Quiet was restraint. Seelan, I whispered, feeling foolish for doing it out loud. Nothing. The station's lights flickered, a subtle shift that meant high-level processes were reallocating resources. Somewhere above me, diplomats were arguing in carefully measured tones. Somewhere else, security algorithms were making decisions that would later be described as unfortunate but necessary. My supervisor appeared at my side, holding a tablet like it might bite him. They're calling an emergency session, he said. Joint council, both species. That sounds productive. He snorted. It sounds like paperwork with consequences. We moved with the flow of people toward the central chamber. The station's music faded, offended. The gravity adjusted, serious now. Screens lit up with symbols that meant unity, caution, and please don't ruin this. Seelan's image appeared among the delegates, her posture composed, her ears still. When her eyes met the camera, and by extension me, I felt the quiet in my band crack just enough to let something through. I am here, she said, not through the band but through the chamber's systems, her voice steady. You look loud. I smiled despite myself. You should hear the music. The session began. Statements were made, concerns raised. The unauthorized communications were referenced without being named, like a ghost everyone pretended not to see. Compatibility studies were mentioned. Historical precedents invoked. Every word added weight. Then someone said the word prohibition, and the room leaned forward. I felt something shift inside me, a realization settling into place with surprising calm. I had spent my life fixing panels, smoothing over glitches, making systems behave. Somewhere along the way, I had learned to make myself small, unremarkable, safe. I stood. My supervisor made a noise that suggested his soul briefly left his body. I'm not a diplomat, I said, my voice carrying farther than I expected. I fix things, and sometimes I don't do it perfectly and things break again. But when they do, you learn something about how they were put together. Murmurs rippled. Screens flickered. Seelan's ears tilted just a fraction. We keep talking about risk, I continued. About what could go wrong if we allow connections we don't understand, but nothing here, nothing exists without risk. Not this station. Not this meeting, not first contact itself. A delegate interrupted, citing protocol. I nodded. Protocols are great. They keep panels closed until they don't. There was a pause. The station traitorously dimmed the lights as if for emphasis. Seelan spoke then, her voice clear. On my world, she said, we have a word that translates poorly. It means something like the bond that teaches. It is forbidden not because it is harmful, but because it is powerful. History shows it changes us. Change is destabilizing, someone said. Yes, she agreed pleasantly. So is stagnation. We have tried both. The humor was subtle, but it landed. A few smiles appeared, cautious but real. She continued. I have learned much in a short time about humans, about myself, about how rules can protect and how they can hide fear. I do not deny the risks. I question the refusal to face them. The chamber buzzed. Systems recalculated. The station, unable to help itself, displayed a probability chart that contradicted itself. I felt my band warm, a familiar presence settling back into place. Your station is panicking, Seelan sent privately. It does that, I replied, usually before something important. The council recessed, which was a polite way of saying everyone needed to argue in smaller groups. I found myself standing alone near the viewport, watching stars slide past like punctuation. You caused a statistical anomaly, the station said, piping directly into my band. I disapprove. Get in line. I also approve, it added. Change improves long-term efficiency. Make up your mind. I am, the station said. It is uncomfortable. Seelan joined me moments later, not physically but close enough that the space between us felt charged. You spoke well, she said. I talked, I corrected. There's a difference. There is, she agreed. You have changed. I considered that. I think I stopped pretending I was maintenance. Her laughter was soft, genuine. You are very loud now. Don't tell the station. The decision, when it came, was not dramatic. No declarations, no sweeping gestures. A pilot program, a study, language that bent just enough to allow what everyone already knew was happening. Conditions, oversight, endless paperwork, permission. Afterward, the station resumed its anniversary music, choosing a different song this time. It was still wrong, but less aggressively so. My supervisor found me again, rubbing his